This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
The Raiders, Ciaran Boyle, we all know what they're going to do with the number one overall pick. They're going to draft Fernando Mendoza, the Indiana quarterback. Because of finishing bottom last and getting to pick first overall, we know that the Raiders have an awful lot of work to do. So it's more interesting really to talk about what they do with the rest of the 9 picks they have. It would have been more than that had they managed to execute the Max Crosby to the Ravens trade, would have given them a second pick in the first round. That's not the case now. They did a lot of work in free agency, but they need to now complement that with the right draft class. Every team needs to do that, we know, but more so the Raiders because of how much of a gap there was between them and contention last year.
Yeah, and they did a huge amount of work in free agency. They almost took care of their entire linebacker roster in free agency with Kwity Paye, Quay Walker, and Nakobe Dean. So they're, and obviously picking up Tyler Linderbaum. But they're looking at Mendoza. What can we do? They're, again, looking around the league, what happened last year with Cam Ward? He had a terrible O-line, and he got creased in nearly every play. He got injured in a game I was at Jacksonville, and that's the last thing they want to happen. So getting Linderbaum in there, as the anchor of that O-line, that's what they're looking for. They got Colton Miller, Powers Johnson at guard. They're probably going to need a tackle. Whether they go for that with the first or the 36, we'll see. I don't think any tackle, not the first pick, I'm sorry, with the 36th, I don't think any of those top 3 tackles we've talked about in the last couple of weeks will be there. They're going to need an O-line for the struggles that Ashton Genty had. There's so many holes and there's so many issues with this Raiders team. Getting Kubiak in, that'll be a nice shake up to the room. But the main problem with this team is offense. Putrid last year, just awful. They were last in total offense, last in rushing offense. They were 27th in red zone offense. So every stat you look at, it was just terrible. And the room, the wide receiver room was pretty terrible. The running back room, it was Genty, and that's about it. So their whole focus this year in 26 is keeping Mendoza upright and giving him weapons to throw to. So with the 36th pick, you have to think they're going tight end or wide receiver. I know they have 10 picks actually. I think they have a compensatory pick thrown in there as well. But I have to think that they're going to load up on some offensive weapons. Kubiak's going to want to, start strong. He doesn't want to start off, 1 of 4, 1 of 5, me playing catch up and worried about Mendoza's, output and production all season. But a wide receiver room like Trey Tucker and Jacoby Myers is not cutting it in this league. It might cut it in the UFL, but it's not going to do it in the NFL. So I see a lot of work with those picks going in the fourth, fifth round, picking up some wide receivers. The other thing is Mendoza is coming into a situation where he balled his what off in college and won some games that he wasn't initially expected to win, but through pure force. And we've seen his post-game interviews. There were games that he won that by no right should have won the games. But he had a dominant unit in front of him. We talked about Cam Ward when he was at Miami. He had Maui Noah in front of him there too. But Ward came from a place where he had a dominant line in front of him, and so is Mendoza. So they're going to want to add some pieces to that too. They don't want to see a situation like Cam Ward where he's getting knocked from pillar to post like last year. So they're going to have to take care of him. That's their prize asset. They're going to have Tom Brady checking in on him every day, before each game, after each game, making sure he's good. So that's their prized possession. They're going to have to add those horses to keep him upright, but they're going to need weapons to throw to, or for him to throw to as well. So there's a huge amount of need there. Defense, is Crosby going to be there? Who knows? What's going to happen there? The linebackers, I'm amazed what they did with free agency, picking up those guys in free agency. That was a master stroke. In a couple of days, they were able to nail down the starting linebackers. But for me, it's all about, this draft is all about Mendoza, what they're going to add for him in in wide receiver help and what they're going to do in the line right for him. So Linderbaum is the first piece. I mean, they picked up Connor Hayward as well. They got obviously Kirk Cousins to kind of whisper things in his ear and keep him motivated and keep him on the straight and narrow in Sin City. Jalen Naylor's a nice little pickup too. But again, just to reiterate the point, it's all about Mendoza and what he's going to be able to do. They're not going to want a Cam Ward situation or any of those kind of rookie quarterbacks getting thrown to the Lions. This is the Raiders. They're going to want to, put their stamp back on. Again, remember, this is a team that hasn't won a playoff game since the 2002 AFC Championship game. 24 years of wasteland. They've been in some playoff games, but they haven't won one in 24 years. It's Sin City. It's lights, glamour. They're going to want to bring that back to the franchise. The Davis family is still ruling the roost there. They remember the good times, and they're going to want that back in Vegas.
Brian, Ciaran talked about Kirk Cousins whispering sweet nothings maybe in Fernando Mendoza's ear to help him settle in. Kirk Cousins had a great line when he came back into the Falcons lineup last year after, from his perspective, frustrating time sitting out. He said, sometimes you got to walk by faith and not by sight. That's what Fernando Mendoza is going to probably have to do next year. It's not all going to take shape necessarily in 1 year, but the Raiders are making a lot of moves, and I don't think it's all going to be around Mendoza either, is it? Because the Max Crosby situation is not insignificant in how it bears on what the Raiders or how the Raiders are going to approach this draft. They have him now back. Do we know whether that's going to be permanent or not? We don't. But either way, it's not all going to be about the offensive side of the ball, because they're either going to have to replace Max Crosby or they can choose to further complement him.
Yeah, Conor, it's interesting when you're doing draft needs and you go into all the various websites, and the certain teams it'll just exploit a couple of positions. It's like tight end, offensive line. And when I looked at the Raiders one today, it had offensive line, safety, linebacker, cornerback, wide receiver. So then you're thinking, they just take best player available every time they hit a draft pick, because there's so many needs on this team. Do they just decide that we're going to totally focus on giving Mendoza as many weapons as they possibly can? The wide receiver is a glaring need. But then defense in the secondary last year was diabolical. It's a tough job there. But I do agree with Ciaran. Like, you look at, there's a kind of a narrative in free agency. Oh, they've done all these deals, and it's because they assume Max Crosby's out the door. Well, they had so much cap space; they were always going to go very heavy in terms of bringing in players, because there's so many needs for the team. I do think Crosby will probably inevitably end up playing there. It's right. It kind of feels to me like it's a trade deadline type of move next year, where they do get a first round pick because he comes back and proves he's still the player he is. But they are going to have to put other players around them. The second round, the fourth pick, it's interesting. Ciaran Naylor said Boston, the wide receiver, Denzel Boston, Washington. He strikes. I thought he's like back end the first round, second round wide receiver. He tells me he's the kind of player that could go there. He looks like a real kind of standout player that could help support him. But then it's up front, isn't it? And Kieran's like we speak about time and time again. A quarterback can only do so much. If the offensive line is a shambles, he's going nowhere. He's going to have a very rough outing, shall we say, initially. But if they can secure some players in the draft to allow him to flourish, maybe we will see a bounce back Raiders team. I think we'd all enjoy to see a different Raiders team for a change, instead of the losing record, in which you see in time and time again. But there's just so many holes there. It's difficult to say, really point out one particular position, Conor. But they do have an abundance of picks, so maybe they strike a right in maybe 50% of the picks, and we see an immediate contribution. But they certainly won't be challenging to win this division. It's too big a stretch right now.
And Shane, to that point, we talk about this often enough. You build your team first and foremost to compete within your division. And that's not just about, as I've been saying, keeping Fernando Mendoza upright. That's an important part of the equation. For Clint Kubiak's offense to succeed in the way his previous offense succeeded in winning the Super Bowl, he doesn't have a Jackson Smith and Jigba. Yes, he's got Brock Bowers, and yes, he's got Ashton Genty, and those players hold out a huge promise, but he doesn't have that JSN. And defensively, like, they've got some of the league's most high-powered offenses to contend with when Fernando Mendoza is not on the field, or Kirk Cousins, as the case may be.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of work to be done in Vegas, and they're not looking for this year as being the sort of silver and black bullet to try and get them back contending for the division. What I'm more worried about is just the strategy. I mean, we talk about copycat teams, copycat league. The Raiders for the last at least 5 or 6 years have been the copycattiest. That's not even a word, but I'm gonna patent it now. Team in the league in terms of Pete Carter was there, so they're trying to build Seattle in the desert. Beforehand, it was Josh McDaniels. They're trying to build New England in the desert, and Tom Brady's there, and they're trying to build whatever. I don't know what it is. They haven't felt like the Raiders since Gruden was in charge.
And Tom Brady cloned his own dog, so he's getting with the program as well, right?
Yeah.
That literally happened, people. Look it up.
Yeah. People could Google that at the end of the episode. But it just in terms of like, so what are they going to do then with Mendoza? Are they going to try and give him his Will Campbell in the second round and go for, I don't know, like Caleb Lomu on offensive line if he's still available then, and try to build out that way? We have to remember, as much as we're talking about skill position and defense, and yes, they spent on offensive line, the O-line was so bad last year. I mentioned the fact that Ashton Genty got tackled so many times behind the line of scrimmage. It was ridiculous. Geno Smith, as indecisive as he wasn't given time. And whether it's Kirk Cousins or Mendoza playing in the first half of the season, we don't know. Are they going to? Is Mendoza starting week 1 here? What way is that going to work? Probably going to change as well. Whether they're going to be as aggressive on the skill positions or just try to get those bread and butter guys early on. It'd just be very interesting. Look, they spent a lot in free agency. I think they need to prepare for Max Crosby being outside of the building in this draft in terms of getting a replacement there, almost planning as if that trade had happened in terms of the draft. I know the money is a different issue, which was the case there. But yeah, it just be, look, there's a lot of work here. I'll just be very interested to see what happens. And on a side note, I am looking forward to all the content for both Mendoza and Kirk Cousins, the two sort of most clean cut, innocent guys, both having to share a quarterback room in Sin City. That should be good crack to sort of see how they get on with that. But yeah, look, I think offensive line. It's not in
that is the worst pitch for a Netflix special I've heard in a long time. I'm jacking in my subscription on that. No thanks.
Oh, like Kirk Cousins was good crack in the last when he was on Netflix the last time, and maybe
was he though?
If there was enough Coles cash, put forward, maybe people would tune in, But yeah, I don't know. Look,
he'll probably like the spear now. I'd say he'd like the spear when he gets over there now.
He'll love it. He loved Varsity Burger. He'll love In-N-Out. That's just follow him going to In-N-Out Burger. That's all. That's all you need to see.
I love In-N-Out Burger pretty much.
But